The moment my CEO stepped closer and lifted her hands toward my tie, the entire room seemed to lose its breath. Her fingers brushed the knot at my collar, careful and deliberate, and time slowed in a way that felt dangerous. I remember thinking how absurd it was that such a small, ordinary gesture could make my chest tighten like this. The boardroom windows reflected a city waking up outside, Chicago steel and glass glowing with ambition, while inside, everything hinged on that quiet second when she leaned in and I forgot how to breathe. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet moments that change lives forever, take a second right now to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that hearts can change when we least expect it. My name is Michael Turner, and at the time, I was just another mid-level analyst trying to survive the pressure cooker of a Fortune 500 company headquartered in downtown Chicago. My days were spreadsheets, late nights, and the constant fear of being invisible. The woman standing in front of me that morning was my CEO, Rebecca Collins, a name that carried weight in every financial magazine and business conference across the United States. She was known as relentless, brilliant, and untouchable. People said she had no room for softness, no patience for weakness, and no time for anything that wasn't results. I believed all of it, because I needed to. Believing she was unreachable made it easier to keep my head down and my heart guarded. That morning was supposed to be routine, a major presentation, one chance to prove I deserved to stay. I had rehearsed all night in my small apartment on the north side, my tie tossed over a chair, my notes spread across the table like a battlefield. Sleep never came. When I arrived early, hands shaking, I realized my tie was crooked beyond saving. I stood there alone in the boardroom, adjusting it again and again, feeling foolish and small. That was when Rebecca walked in, not with her usual entourage, but alone, coat draped over her arm, eyes sharper than usual yet somehow tired. She stopped when she saw me struggling. There was a pause that felt heavier than any reprimand. Then she stepped closer than she ever had before, and reached up to fix my tie herself. The world narrowed to the space between us. Her presence was calm, steady, almost protective, and it unsettled me more than her toughest critiques ever had. She leaned in just enough that I could sense her breath, and in that quiet closeness she murmured something under her breath, half warning, half vulnerability, that made my heart stutter. It wasn't flirtation the way movies show it. It was something more fragile, like a truth slipping out when it wasn't supposed to. From that moment on, nothing felt the same. I walked through the presentation as if on instinct alone. My voice didn't shake. My hands stopped trembling. I spoke with a confidence I didn't know I had, because for the first time someone I admired didn't see me as invisible. When the meeting ended, Rebecca nodded once, subtle but unmistakable. That single gesture carried more validation than years of performance reviews, yet it also opened a door inside me I wasn't prepared to walk through. The challenge wasn't the workload or the pressure anymore, it was the silence. Rebecca returned to her composed, distant self, and I was left wondering if that moment had been real or just my exhaustion playing tricks on me. Days turned into weeks. Late nights became routine again. But now there was a tension under everything, a quiet awareness whenever she entered a room. I struggled with guilt, with fear, with the knowledge that power lines were being crossed in ways that could cost everything I'd worked for. I told myself to forget it, to focus, to be grateful for the job and nothing more. Life, however, has a way of pressing on the bruises we try to ignore. A sudden corporate crisis hit us hard, stock dropping, rumors spreading, board members circling like vultures. Rebecca carried it all on her shoulders, and for the first time, cracks showed. She stayed later than anyone, skipped meals, and the sharpness in her eyes dulled into something heavier. One night I found her alone in her office long after the building had emptied, staring out at the city like it had betrayed her. I should have turned around. I didn't. There was no dramatic confession, no forbidden moment, just two tired people sharing the weight of a collapsing world. I listened as she spoke, not in speeches, not in commands, but in quiet truths about responsibility, loneliness, and the cost of always being strong. I realized then that behind the title and the reputation was a woman who had learned to survive by never letting anyone get close. And somehow, without meaning to, she had let me step just inside that wall. What changed everything wasn't romance, it was trust. She began to lean on me professionally, then personally, asking for opinions, inviting me into decisions that mattered. My confidence grew, not because I felt special, but because I was finally being seen. And in return, I worked harder than I ever had, not out of fear, but out of loyalty. The company stabilized, the crisis passed, the board praised her leadership. No one noticed the quiet partnership forming behind the scenes, built on respect and restraint. Still, there was a line we never crossed. That unspoken moment from the boardroom lingered between us like a held breath. Some nights, alone in my apartment, I wondered what might have been different if I'd said something, if she had. But growth doesn't always come from getting what we want. Sometimes it comes from choosing what's right, even when it hurts. Months later, on a bright spring morning, Rebecca announced her resignation. She stood before the company, composed as ever, explaining it was time for a new chapter. The room buzzed with shock and admiration. When the applause faded, her eyes found mine across the crowd, and for a brief second, the world narrowed again, just like that first morning. This time, there was peace in her expression, gratitude, closure. After she left, my career continued to rise. Opportunities opened. I became someone I was proud of, not because of who I knew, but because of who I had become through the struggle. Rebecca sent a handwritten note weeks later, thanking me for reminding her that strength and kindness can exist in the same space. I keep it folded in my desk drawer, a quiet reminder that some moments shape us without ever needing to be named. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of a moment that changed you quietly and forever, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and let us know you were here. Before the story ends, I have one special request. Please comment below with the word hope if you believe that the smallest moments can change a life. Because sometimes, it isn't the grand gestures or the dramatic confessions that define us. Sometimes it's a crooked tie, a whispered warning, and the courage to become more than we were, without taking what was never meant to be ours.